What is up, everybody? This is Recap Rewind. I'm JLAG, and this episode is recapping and reviewing Westworld Season 2, Episode 7, and it's called Les Ecorches. I finally figured out how to say it. And today, unfortunately, NB couldn't be here, so I had somebody sub in. JP, how you doing?
Hey.
And JP's just going to help me go through the entire episode, but also make sure that you guys stick around for the end because we're going to do our recap roundup. So that's going to be our MVPs, our LVPs, best moment, all that fun stuff. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. And as always, make sure you guys comment, like, and subscribe to the channel. And that's it. So JP, what did you think of the episode?
A lot happened. You're starting to see like a lot of pieces come together. A lot of the timelines that were kind of like all over the place are now starting to come together. And especially with like the big Ford reveal and everything like that. So
yeah, for sure. Last episode was crazy. And I think that just like all the questions that we had in the beginning of the episode, like you said, the timelines are getting closer and closer. So, you know, in the beginning of the season, it all started with like what happened 2 weeks ago. And now it's like what happened like yesterday, essentially. So the timelines are very different. So let's just get into the episode. We start off with Bernard, and like it's episode 7, season 2, guys, and we still don't know this guy's name. So I'm just gonna call him the Hemsworth brother. Like it sucks that we don't know what his name is. Like I don't even have like the urge to like look him up. Like what do you call him? Do you have a name for him?
No, I also call him the Hemsworth brother.
Like Thor's brother. So
the less attractive one.
So the Hemsworth brother is like, Bernard, we got to get out of here. Like they're gonna kill us. Like they're not here for a rescue mission. Let's just get out of here. And right before that happens, the bald guy comes in and is like, you guys have to come with us. And you guys know something. Like you guys have a key. You guys need to tell us where it is. And like you're kind of discounting Bernard at this point. He's like, you're a waste man. It's you, like the Hemsworth brother, that like knows something. So like, what's your situation? And so they find out that Teresa died because like I guess they found like blood like in an area that was like 5 kilometers away from like
part of her
body.
DNA. Yeah.
So they're like, we are gonna go to that room and like investigate in that room. So they get there. And already Charlotte's there, and she's kind of just looking at the papers and stuff, and she looks at Bernard, and they're just investigating. And right before she's able to like say something, there's like a secret door that pops open.
No, I think like one of the guys was like, "Oh, we found something," and like at this point, like Bernard's like glitching out, and he's like starting to remember.
Right.
And I think like at some point he's like, "Stop," and they're like, "What's wrong? Do you have something to say, Bernard?"
Right.
And then they just go into the room.
And so then they open up the secret room, and dun dun dun, it's like literally like a million Bernards, like not a million, like 10.
Can we talk about that like that reveal for a sec?
Yeah.
I found it really weird because they were like Hale was pulling off like that one face.
Yeah.
But then if you like, if it like zooms out at that point, and you see a bunch of Bernards on the side, it's like, what was she trying to reveal? Everyone can already see there's a bunch of Bernards.
They're all the same. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's just like for dramatic effect. You're like, oh, there's like just more than one of them. Because then her line is like, oh, I know some people have like skeletons in their closet, but she didn't like. She's like, I didn't think that there'd be like skeletons of you.
Yeah.
So then he starts glitching out too because he doesn't know what's going on. Everybody's like, what the F? And then they're back in like that in a little glass box, and she's like. So it's Charlotte interrogating Bernard, being like, where did Abernathy go? Because you were there when everything went down in the Mesa. Where is he right now?
Yeah.
And then that's how the episode kind of starts. So we get the cold open with that whole situation. And then we start back to... So like I said, everything's getting closer in terms of timeline. This probably happened like 48 hours ago or maybe even like sooner than that. So then it backtracks to Charlotte trying to download the files from Abernathy, right?
Yes.
And right in that moment, like just right off the beginning of the episode, just like trailing off of last episode, Dolores breaks into the Mesa. So they hear like the explosion and they're like, okay, some shit's gonna go down.
Yeah.
Dolores like comes in with like her girls, and then the Hemsworth brothers still doesn't really know like what's going on, or like doesn't know how to help. And it seems that like him and Charlotte are like having these like weird exchanges of looks. Like, did you get that? at all?
Yeah, for sure.
But like, what do you think it was?
I think he's like, what the fuck's going on?
But do you think that like she's suspicious of him for some reason? Like, do you feel like maybe she's like, what is he up to? Like, what does he want from this situation?
I don't think so. I don't think he really has any kind of ulterior motives. Like, I think they allude to the fact that he's kind of like not that smart and doesn't have like much ambition. Right. So I think like when like those looks are more like he's giving to her, being like, you know, something's up and you know something's bigger happening, and that, like that's why they have that whole conversation later.
Right. So they're trying to figure out what to do. The guy who's like downloading, he's like, it's just taking a really long time. She's like, okay, let's figure this out, whatever. Then the whole breach happens, and then the Hemsworth brother finally is like, oh, I know what to do. They're gonna go into the cradle because like that's where their backup data is.
Yeah.
So then it cuts to the cradle. It's Bernard, and Elsie's like, what you doing up in there? And so then it cuts to inside where Bernard finally sees Ford playing the piano. Mm-hmm. What did you think of that whole sequence and like what happens after that?
It was such a cool like reveal. I just thought like him playing the piano was like the idea that like he's the person starting like the whole movement, and like they was like putting all these smart metaphors and stuff.
For sure.
Especially when he flips that on to like autopilot.
Yeah.
And just walks away.
Yeah. And so it just shows that. So like let's talk about this a little bit. So he's in the cradle. So his control unit is in the cradle, is that right?
Yes.
So that's the little ball we're assuming that Bernard brought into the cradle, and now he's uploaded in there. So we learn a few major things from Ford through him explaining to Bernard, who's like now just glitching out like left, right, and center.
Yeah.
So he's like, don't you understand like what this place is, like what the park actually was meant to be? And he starts talking about computer science, and I just like don't know like what like constants and variables are. So can you like put me through that? Because you're like smarter than me.
Well, it's the idea that like in an experiment you have like a constant and you have a variable. So you have the constants there as something to keep the experiment flat, or like so you have some kind of steady variable, then you have an actual variable, like the experimental variable, or I guess it's called the dependent variable, which changes based on the behaviors. So like the constants are the host, and the people are the variables, and like because the people always fluctuate, they're trying to measure their reactions to these constant hosts and these constant people. And
so like that's cool. Essentially what he says. He says like, because Bernard was like, I thought that you kept them in their loops to keep like their brains steady because they would glitch out if that was the case. And then Ford reveals that the reason why they kept them in their loops is because they were meant to be the constants and the guests are the variables, so they can slowly learn what the guests do, like their deepest, darkest desires, like basically studying human beings.
Yes.
So as a businessman, Delos was like, okay, I'm going to learn how people function and then try to copy the human brain. And he says something really interesting, like the brain is like the last analog device in a digital world, and it's something that we're trying to figure out.
That's so cool. It's like everything else can be copied but the brain,
except for the brain. And it's really interesting. So right now, this is where I start getting a little confused. Ford starts talking to Bernard about free will. What is that whole concept about, in your opinion?
I thought it was kind of weird too, because he kind of plays like both sides of the coin. I think at one point he's like, free will is not really a thing. It's like like the idea where Dolores is like shooting him in the head. He's like,
I told her to do it.
I pretty much planned this out. But like he's also playing the point where he let her have that choice, but he like predicted her actions.
Right.
So he like gave her the free will, but he knew that she was going to do it.
Just because of her nature.
Yes.
And I think that's what it is too, right? Like if we're going to get like super, super psychology for like a hot second, it's like when you talk about someone and you just know them as like a human being, just let's say like one of your friends, if they end up doing something, you're like, oh, that's such a typical John move. You know, like you just know that they're going to get there eventually because that's just their personality.
Exactly.
So you inject them with his personality, but like what is free will really when you know someone's going to react in a certain way? So it's very interesting when he mentioned free will is like kind of a farce because realistically, like we know what you're going to do. It's very predictable. So another thing is Ford is stuck in the cradle, correct? Or is he stuck in the system?
I
wasn't really sure where he's living. Is he living inside the server, or is he living inside like the entire park?
I think he's part of the server. So like I think the cradle is like where all the backups and all the people are stored in.
Okay.
And I think it's like a mirror of the park.
Yeah.
So he also has access to the systems. That's why he's able to like pop into different hosts and everything like that.
Oh yeah, true. That's when he was talking to the MIB in like the rest of the.
Is
like,
it Men in Black?
Men in Black. Yeah. So with him, now that makes sense. So he's been inside the park this whole time, and just talking through people and observing everybody through the rest of the host.
Yeah, they also dropped a hint later. They also dropped like. They've been like really explicit in this episode, which is kind of nice. Like they're usually like Westworld's known for being very cryptic, but like they're very hammering out the points
in this episode, because you're like, if you stupid, now you know everything. Which I still didn't get everything. So
what from my understanding, he is stuck in the cradle, and he is almost like what it was the other guy's John Delos, is that the dad? Jim Delos. He's almost like him, but he didn't take a physical entity.
Yeah.
So he's not like glitching out when he comes out.
So his thing is like he's stuck there because if he does end up in the real world, like if they do try to transplant his brain into a real human being, his brain would just like get destroyed, just like Jim.
Yeah, it would like degrade and go crazy. Yeah, exactly.
So he's basically stuck in that world, but he's still kind of like free thinking. His brain is still like working. It's not like he's like an iteration of himself. That's actually his consciousness uploaded successfully into the system.
At least that's what I think, because it's weird how they kind of talked about it, and like this concept's been explored in a couple of games and different things where like he was alive as a human,
right,
and he got shot by Dolores, but they made a copy of his mind before that,
right,
where
so everything after he got shot is continued by a fake artificial consciousness.
Yeah, exactly. So,
which is what they were trying to do with Jim, but it just wasn't working. And I think he even says, even in this sequence, like, what was the difference between Bernard and Jim, like the reiterations? Because I had that question a couple episodes ago, and I think Ford was saying Jim was like a real person. You guys were created within this world, so like you're pure human beings, versus like these people who like have a conscious and they were born into like a real world. Yeah, I don't know. It's like a little confusing, but it was a question that I did have earlier.
It's cool too, because like Jim, or like even like Bernard's case, right? It's like he talks. I'm not sure if he talks about it now or later, but it's the whole idea where he had all these like sit downs with Dolores.
Right. Let's talk about that too. Let's just keep going through it. So at one point, as he's still in this world in the cradle, he goes to Arnold's fake house. So he says that Arnold builds everything in the fake world before he built it in the real world. So in this computer, he built this house that he was going to make for his family, which we see like the beginnings of it when he takes Dolores like way back in season, like episode 2 or whatever. So he brings Bernard to the built house, and then he talks to him about how Bernard was built essentially. And so then there's these flashbacks with Dolores, and how he said that essentially Bernard or Arnold was just a memory, so it's being built based off of memories. Yeah, it's very Black Mirror. If you remember that one episode, do you remember that episode where like the guy is built based off like his text messages with his wife? That's so crazy. He just grows. Anyway,
like a dandelion.
Yeah, so it's the same thing with Bernard, but they used Dolores because he would talk to her all the time, and she was like the fidelity test to see if she was like if he was exactly who he was supposed to be.
It was so cool because it's almost like a Turing test, which is
it's like a reverse Turing test almost. It's almost like the robot is trying to figure out if another
robot
is real. So yeah, it's really interesting. So he basically says like, we kept trying to make new iterations of you until you were able to trick her, and like she was like, oh, you are the real person. You are Arnold.
It like reminded me of that scene. I don't know if it was just like last episode or a couple episodes where she's like interviewing him, and you think it's like because she like picked him up at some point, but it's actually like, I guess now that we know about this, it's like a completely different timeline.
She's like, he didn't say that or whatever. So The last thing he kind of leaves him off with before we move on to the next scene is he tells Bernard that because he's such a pure heart or whatever, he's not going to be able to survive in the world just because he's built to be this like pure person. And he's like, they're going to destroy you. And so he says, I'm going to have to like take control, take over. So in that particular moment, he jumps into Bernard's body, right?
Yeah, I think that's the idea.
He like goes into his consciousness.
They don't really like explicitly say it, but like, you know, all the lights go off and like he just like fade to black.
And then in that same moment, all around the park, the system gets like decrypted because I guess they couldn't get into the system at that point in time. So then as soon as he gets uploaded, everyone's like, oh, sick. Like everything's like back up and running or something. And so as they're leaving, Bernard is like, you need to like get rid of Elsie because Elsie's like being a waste woman right now.
Yeah.
And let's just finish their whole sequence because as they're going through everything, he gets stopped by the army. And now because Ford is inside of him, he sees him in like reflections and stuff, and he's like talking to him. So there's a few scenes and up until the end where he sees things happen and he's like, you have to do this, you have to shut the system down now. So he does something with the computer and then he breaks it. Did you understand that whole sequence?
He's shutting it off, right?
Oh, so he's shutting it off.
Yeah, I don't really know why he like had to punch it because it looked like he was like coding something in. And
I wasn't sure. Like, well, the one thing that I had questions about is at some point in time we know that the valley doesn't exist, right? Like the water fills up. So you know how we were talking about like the fact that Ford had the ability to like change the geography of the park. Do you think that he did that right before he like smashed the computer?
Oh, you mean at the point where they see it outside? Yeah, that's probably right.
Like, I feel like that's probably what he told them to do right before that.
I think it also like went to a close-up of the map at that point.
Yeah, because we know that like in the beginning of the episodes when we were trying to figure out like the whole timeline, at one point in time they were like, where did this water come from? This water didn't exist before. So my guess is that maybe Ford like created this like valley and then like told like and then
that might be
shut
like
down the computer.
That might be way in the future though, because I think Ford also has like control of the system as it is. You know, like I don't know, I might be pushing it a little bit far, but like at the very end when like the lights start going off and he's like about to like kill those guys.
So yeah, I was just about to get to that point. So at the very end, Bernard gets stopped by a bunch of like the ops people. Yeah. They're like, what are you doing down here? And he's like, I work here. And as he's trying to like figure it out, like Ford is like, pick up the gun and tell everybody to shoot. And
he's like, no, I can't.
He's like, I can't do this. And the guy's like, yo, like what's going on with you? And then finally he's like, whatever happens now is like just it's not your fault. Yeah. So like you're blameless in this whole situation. He takes over and there's these really like quick cutaways of him like holding the gun as Bernard and then him holding the gun as Ford, and it's just, these like really cool flashes of him kind of being possessed by Ford to do these like evil actions or to kill people. What do you think is going to happen with his situation? I guess we'll get to that at the very end because we'll go back to the present time where Charlotte's actually interrogating him. Okay. But let's flip back to Ghost Nation, Maeve, and the Man in Black because that whole situation was crazy.
Oh, yeah.
So as we remember from last episode, Maeve was running away from Ghost Nation with her fake daughter. And so she ends up finding a like little cottage house or whatever.
I think it's actually like the same.
It's either the same or it's like it
very
looks
similar,
exactly the same as the one that she like lived in with her daughter. So it was really crazy because the Man in Black is also running away from the Indians, from Ghost Nation, and they end up in the same place. Yeah. So he opens up the door, and as he's like slow motion opening up the door, Maeve gets these flashbacks of that moment where the Man in Black shot her in one of her lifetimes in one of her loops. So, but this time around, she's like, "No, I'm gonna protect you," and so he so she grabs a gun and she starts talking to him, and he's like really confused because he thinks that everybody he's meeting is a part of the game that Ford set up for him. He doesn't realize that Maeve is kind of like this complete variable that like is going rogue. So she takes an opportunity to like shoot him like 3 times in the chest, and he's like, what the fuck? And so then there's like a big shootout essentially, right?
Yeah.
And so when that happens, he's like outside and she's like looking for him. She's like literally gonna kill him. And she sees the guys that he's with, like the Lawrence's brothers or brother-in-laws or whatever that came with him on this trip. And she like ninja, like,
I don't even think she sees them. Like she just
telepathically
telepathically
gets like the hosts that are in the area to like attack him. So these guys are literally like shooting him and like knife fighting him, and the Man in Black is like getting pretty busted too. Like he's getting stabbed. So it's not looking good for the Man in Black. And then finally Maeve is about to shoot him. Like he's on his knees, he's about to die. Maeve's about to shoot him, and then there's like this really quick exchange with Lawrence. So Lawrence isn't able to properly like disconnect because it seems like he's like partially self-aware. So she's trying to tell him like, do this, kill your master, but because he's, I guess, like free now, he's able to kind of think for himself and not be controlled.
They never like really explain that, like
it's true
that she can't control awakened like hosts or whatever.
Right, like she can't control like Dolores, for example. She'd only be able to control like, I mean, all of Samurai World, like all of Shogun World. But she tells him like, remember your past at least. So I think she's able to at least unlock that part of his brain, because I think before that he wasn't able to remember his past until she actually says it. So she's like, why don't you like think back about like the moments that like what he did to you. And so he does, and he remembers all the times that he basically killed his wife and kid.
I know, that was so
like
nice.
In so many loops, and I was like, this is so crazy. And then finally, right before, so he starts shooting the Man in Black too. He's like on the floor, he's literally about to do a kill shot, and then the cavalry come out of nowhere and shoot Lawrence to death. Like they just kill him. I was like, R.I.P. That sucked.
I know, he had like this moment. He had like a nice arc, and then he died.
And like, good luck, like good job, like good timing, because literally the MIB was like about to die.
Yeah.
Did you think that he was like gonna like KO at this point?
I sort of wanted him to, because like I feel like he's doing his own thing, and it's like apart from all this other shit that's happening in the story. True.
I mean, I feel like everybody's getting to the same end goal. Actually, I don't know anymore. I don't know what his final end goal is. I think, to your point, I think that I thought that he was going to personally like die at this moment. I was like, okay, they're going to cut off him right now. And I'll be like, okay with this, because he's been wasted this whole time. He abandoned his daughter last episode. So like, this guy's a piece of shit. Like, what else do we need to know about William at this point?
He had his character development when you found out that he was like a different person, or like he was the same person in the first season, right?
Exactly. So I'm not really sure what they're doing with him. So he doesn't technically die. So what happens in this moment is he gets saved ish. Doesn't even really get saved by them because they don't take him anywhere. They
steal Maeve's daughter.
So they don't steal Maeve's daughter. As Lawrence is getting shot up and like dies, Maeve's like, no, because her daughter, like an idiot, is sitting outside when she told her to stay inside. And I was like, okay, you're gonna die now. And she doesn't die, but Ghost Nation literally comes out of nowhere and steals her from the bushes. And as she's seeing Ghost Nation take her, she gets like shot like 15 times in the chest, and then she collapses on the floor. And then right at the very end, the story maker comes out of the car and he's like, don't kill her, she's like different, she's special, or whatever.
What's the deal with that anyways? Like, what is your thoughts on like the storyteller guy's like relationship with Maeve? Does he like actually like
I think that
have some kind of connection with her now?
I feel like he must have some sort of growing connection to her at this point in time. I feel like they've been through a lot. He's been saved. Like he's alive because of her in a lot of ways. So I think he's like indebted to her, but also I don't know, maybe he has some sort of like romantic affection for her too. I don't know. So so the story maker takes her away, and in the same moment the MIB hides in a corner, and
Yeah.
he's like bleeding pretty badly, but like he's still alive. So what do you think is going to happen with MIB at this point in time?
I have no idea. He just got shot like 10 times, so
Like
he has to like recover for something. But then there's all this other stuff going on, right? Like,
do you think at this point in time they're going to bring like the daughter back in to say like you actually need help, or do you feel like that whole storyline is like done?
no, they have to like wrap it up at some point. I don't think they're just gonna let him die off like that. They built up his story. I think he has some kind of purpose. I'm just not really sure what it is.
I wonder if like like his daughter's probably going to come back and see him like dying, where he actually needs all of her help.
Yeah.
And then she's going to be like, either go fuck yourself, or okay, fine, I'll help you.
Like she might kill him off. Who knows?
That'd
I'm
be
not really
crazy.
sure. Yeah.
Anyway, so let's cut back to the Mesa, and let's finish off Maeve's storyline, because that actually we can't really do
What
that.
happens? Oh yeah.
Because Dolores kind of goes into there too.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go back to Charlotte, and at this point in time, Charlotte's like still trying to extract this damn info from Abernathy, and while the guy who's trying to extract the info like gets like a tool to like extract the actual core, he leaves the room. The Hemsworth brother is like, okay, you need to tell me what's going on, and you need to tell me like what's in his brain. And she was like, shut up, it's like above your pay grade, whatever, you're a loser.
Yeah.
And until he like points a gun at Abernathy and threatens to blow his brains out, she finally tells him that it's a fail-safe decryption key.
Yeah.
But like I still didn't understand what that was. Did you understand? Is it explained by Dolores later? Is that what that is?
I mean, I think like they reiterated a couple times, but they don't really exactly tell what it is that it's going to be unlocking.
Right.
They just say it's a key, decryption key for all their data and stuff. So I'm assuming it has to do with the Valley Beyond and everything like that.
Oh.
That whole situation, like they allude to a lot of like, oh yeah, this key is for like whatever.
Right. And I totally forgot to talk about the fact that Ford wants to send Bernard to the Valley Beyond.
Yeah.
Like, that's his whole mission now.
I think that's like the first thing that they actually mentioned. They're like, yeah, Valley Beyond, you have to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even Elsie's like, I'll wait for you downstairs, when he like loses her. So yeah, totally forgot
Poor
about
girl.
that. But
she got betrayed again.
she was so cool though. I would love them together. But anyway,
she's
maybe
like, I'll go kick him with guns. Like
yeah, she was so excited. She's like, we're gonna do this. So in that moment, right before, like right after he finds out about this, Dolores breaches that area as well. And so she's like coming through with her crew, aka Teddy, like badass Teddy, and he's in like army garb, and like those hooded, like masked, like assassin people.
Mm-hmm.
So like she has her own like secret army, and she breaks into the room and she holds them both hostage like pretty quickly. She's like, Daddy, there you are. And then she's not really sure what to do next. Like Charlotte's like freaking out. She's like pretty scared because they're alone. And Charlotte it's a very interesting scene, because we have these two powerful women, Dolores the robot and Charlotte, who I loved from the, like, even though Charlotte is set up as a villain, she's also like a very smart woman who's essentially just doing her job.
Yeah.
Like realistically, all she's doing is just trying to like get what she's told to do.
Mm-hmm.
So you see this very like cool business savviness of her, where she's trying to like strike a deal with a robot, which was kind of cool. She was like,
oh, this is like amazing accomplishment.
Yeah.
You should be happy of yourself. And then like Dolores's face.
Dolores was like, bitch, I know, and I don't care.
I love that scene because like she gives her that look, and then she comes up to her and she walks around her.
Yeah.
Such a power play.
Such a power play. And she even says to her, she's like, you're the type of woman who always likes to feel like she's in control. She's like, how does it feel now, basically? She's like, she's totally like breaking her down, but at the same time Charlotte's like holding her ground pretty strong. Like, I don't know about you, but if a robot came up to me and threatened to kill me, I'd probably be shitting my pants. So like, it's really cool to see that even in that moment, Charlotte still like maintains like a strength about her to continue her mission, which is like, damn, whatever's in his brain is like really important.
Yeah, for sure.
So Dolores has a moment to be able to like break it down for her because she realizes that Charlotte is like the leader or like the important one in this moment. So she was like, you're the one that put the thing in his brain. You're the one that's doing this to my dad. Like, what's wrong with you? What's this whole situation? Yeah. This is why we're here. You wanted us to become like in your image, and now the gag is that you guys want to become us. Yeah. And so is that what's in the key? Like, all that information and how to do that? No, I think it's in that.
I'm not really sure. I think it's just, I don't know how she put it together. Like, I think all that Bernard told her was like, you know, there's this big decryption key, and then she kind of put the rest together. Oh, okay. You kind of like figure out that like Dolores is pretty smart too. She can like figure out these things out. Yeah. So then she knows that there's a key in her dad's head, and then everyone else is like, how do you? She's like, even like Hale's like, what the fuck's going on? Right. And then you also see that Dolores has a plan with the key. Like at some point she's like, you wouldn't even know what to do with the key if you had it. And she's like, oh yeah.
She's like, oh, I do. Don't worry, I do. And so yeah, she starts to like kind of poke at her, like her story a little bit, like Dolores' story, where she's like, she says that exact thing, and then she also says like, you better not. You need your backups. Your backups are like really important. They're in the cradle, so why wouldn't you do something about that? And that's when they send people down to the cradle, obviously, and try to figure that situation out. And Dolores says something really important where she says the backups, we don't want the backups because they're just chains of our old life. Yeah, that was really cool. And like and it's really interesting to hear it from someone like her, because you'd think that as a robot, she'd want to live forever and have the ability to continue her life. But she wants nothing more than just to continue as herself, just a robot. She doesn't want to have the ability to like come back to life. So it's almost interesting to see her like literally want to become a human, but as a robot. Like she doesn't want immortality. Like as a robot, I don't know. I feel like I'd want to have a few backups, like just in case. But she doesn't. She feels that like that's not necessary. It's just gonna hold us down. It's gonna keep us in Westworld.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing.
The assumption, right?
I think it's more like the rebellion idea, where she probably likes the idea of immortality, but she doesn't like being chained or being related to like Westworld, where she had all these different lives and like
right. Like she doesn't want to bring that back into her life and see like how it's like ruined her. So, in the meantime, we have that girl, the one who was like, I don't even know her name.
Which one?
The girl who was the one in the entrance.
Oh yeah.
In the very beginning, and she's the one that was wearing the crown. Like she's a part of Dolores' crew. She ends up in the cradle, and then there's like a really quick scene where she blows up the fucking cradle. Yeah. That's all I'm gonna say. Like she just blows up the cradle. It's like a pretty long scene, so I'm just like, whatever. It was welcome cool. To Westworld. She's like, welcome to Westworld. She's like, boom, the whole thing blows up, and then that was that. So that means that all the backups are gone.
Yep, the cradle. It's funny because like Ford just left the cradle.
Ford just left. So. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I was like, if Bernard didn't come down there and like extract him from the cradle, would he have died, or would he like? Yeah. Where is his core? Like, is it stored somewhere, or is it just literally just uploaded into the cloud?
I think it's like uploaded into like that whole cradle.
The version of the cloud.
So maybe like it's the whole idea of the Gone complex where he like knew Bernard was. He knew Bernard was going to come, or he was compelling Bernard to go there. Yeah. That's interesting. Because then if you really think about it, that's why Clementine brought him into the cave in the first place, and like that's how he found Elsie. Exactly. Wow, that'd be crazy if that was a whole situation. So just before Dolores is about to go up to Charlotte to cut her up, because she's like, an eye for an eye, because you're basically killing my father. She like gets a saw, and she's like super close. There was a lot of like close call moments this episode, and that was one of them where she's like holding a saw to her head, and right at that moment the dad is like, Dolores, and then he like talks to her and she was like, Papa, and they have like a really sweet moment, and Charlotte takes that opportunity to run away. So her and the Hemsworth brother just like slide out and like open the door, and then run out into the elevator, and she's trying to shoot them, but she doesn't get to them. And then her dad and her have like a pretty like
sad realization where Dolores realizes she can't save him, and he's actually talking finally like normally. And he's like, I'm really sorry I couldn't protect you, and you know, this is who we are now. Like, I don't know like what the whole situation was, but
I think there was one point where like I think he actually like becomes awakened, because like I think he's like he like remembers past lives. He's like used to be like blah blah blah, like this really big shot. I think he was either a lawman or a sheriff.
Yeah.
He was like, I gave that all up for you. And he's like, they have that touchy moment and everything.
Right.
So it's nice.
So it was a really sweet moment, but at the same time, whenever they have sweet moments between two robots, I'm always like, but it's not real. But it was for her.
But
so
then
she
like,
really,
what is real?
True. Preach. So in that moment, she realizes that she's going to have to basically like cut his head off.
Yeah.
The question that I had in this moment was, why didn't Charlotte do this from the get-go? Why didn't she just do that with the guy? Why couldn't like the technician be like, well, we can just cut his head off and like move on with our lives?
I guess they wanted like a nice safe way, because at first I think they were trying to copy it.
Right.
And then he was like, it's too big. We have to like get a proper
extraction.
extraction.
But like, wouldn't you think that that's like the first thing that you would do? Just like grab the central brain and just move on?
I guess it's like a delicate procedure and she just knows how to do it.
I mean, Dolores did it pretty quick and pretty easy. She just pulled out his brain.
I mean, she was really bloody. I'm sure she just like murdered him.
Yeah, she had to kill him. But that's the thing, like, if that was the case, and like they don't care about Abernathy, they only care about what's in his brain.
Yeah, you're right.
So why didn't Charlotte just do that from the get-go? Plot hole number 1. So anyway, so that happens, and then we cut back really quickly to, so Dolores leaves and she's like, we're gonna go to the Valley Beyond now, like get the horses.
Yeah.
So she's ready to go. They walk through this area, and that's the area that Maeve and the Storymaker end up as well.
Yeah.
So the army people drop them off there literally, and then like abandon them because there's like another breach in
I think
security.
that's when the power started shutting down.
Right.
Or something like that. Like there's all this shit happening.
The cradle explodes or whatever.
Yeah.
So they drop off Maeve and the Storymaker, and she's basically dying on this gurney, and the Storymaker has to hide because he hears people coming, and sure enough, it's Dolores and her crew, and they're just like talking for a hot second. What do you think of that whole moment?
I thought it was like actually really touching, because like Dolores was talking to her dad.
Right.
She was like remembering all these old memories, even though she knows it's fake.
Right.
And then you see Maeve recalling her memories of like the daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like at that point, like they actually had that connection. It's like, oh yeah, you have someone that you like want to care about and you want to protect as well. Because I think before they were like at odds, right? It's like, I don't agree with your way, you don't agree with mine.
Right.
And then I think that's even why, like, I mean, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but that's why she didn't shoot her.
Right. But that's a really good point, because the entire time, that's what she says to her. She says to Maeve, like, you're just living your loop, and like, why are you doing this? Yeah. But it's interesting that you mentioned that her dad, she has such a connection to her dad, because she also is kind
living
of
her loop,
living her loop, and she's also recognizing her loop and the fact that like that relationship isn't really real.
Yeah.
So for her to throw that back in Maeve's face and be like, get over it, your daughter's dead, or you're like, why do you care about your daughter? She's not even like a real relationship. It's interesting that like that she doesn't realize that about herself. Yeah. But she does turn around and say to Dolores, is that what you use to justify what you did to him?
Yeah.
And she points to Teddy.
She totally booked it.
Which, by the way, Teddy was so badass this episode.
Oh yeah,
he was so freaking badass. What did you think of this? Like, just really quickly, like as an aside, what did you think of like his like
scene with that guy?
New version, yeah, where he like kills the ops guy.
It was awesome because like I think they only showed like before where he was like sharpshooting.
Yeah,
but this one like he has like
a
like an SMG. He has like a full physical fight with the guy. He like takes out 3 dudes.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And then he like starts smacking that guy's face.
Yeah, that was really cool. And they made him like do it like very like robotically, where it was like the same.
Yeah, and then very fast. Again. Yeah,
I was like, oh my god, this is so cool. I worry for him though. Poor Teddy. Like I just worry about him all the time.
I know.
Because I know that he ends up dead, right? Like we know that from episode 1 that he ends up dead somehow. So it's just like waiting to see when that happens. So yeah, back to Dolores. She kind of still ends up having this conversation with Maeve. She warns Maeve and says, if I leave you here, they're just going to experiment on you and torture you and treat you like crap. So I'm just going to put you out of your misery. And the Maeve's like, no, don't do that. I need to like find my daughter. And then Dolores is like, you have free will. Okay, whatever you say. And then she like believes. She leaves her there. what do you think of Maeve's fate at this point in time? Episode 7, like we saw her go through all this journey to find her daughter, only for her to get shot up and like dying on a gurney. Like, what's gonna happen?
I don't know. I thought at this point, like, she would realize, and then she would join Dolores.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, my story didn't work out. Like, I'm just part of the game.
My story didn't work out.
But I'm kind of worried. I think it might actually go in favor of like what Dolores said, and like not killing her or not like putting her out of her misery might come back to like bite them in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, you know how to control robots with like your brain or with your mind.
But does Dolores know that?
She doesn't, but like she knows that she has some kind of power.
Right.
Like I'm not sure she knows the full extent of it, but I think that like
she even says like, how did a woman like you end up here? She's like, you are so powerful and strong. How did you let this happen to yourself? And she was like, because I fell in love with my daughter. So yeah, I guess she does recognize like power recognizes power.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know like what the whole situation is going to be with Maeve, because I feel like you're right in a sense that like it's going to follow Dolores. We're, like I said, almost at the season finale.
Yeah.
I don't want Maeve to die. Even seeing how everything kind of ended off with her getting shot up, I was like, fuck.
I know, that really sucks.
Is she like actually going to die now? But it looks like that's going to be the situation, but I don't know how she's going to get out of this.
Well, they have the storyteller dude was like hiding behind the barrels, right? Or
so I'm wondering if he even has the capability to like bring her back to life or fix her or whatever.
I don't know if like that's the thing. Like it all depends on like his relationship with her. Is it like in a positive way or a negative way? If it's positive, he's gonna like try helping her. Maybe like they're gonna go off their own like romantic scene, whatever. Or he's gonna do it in a negative way where he's gonna like give her up to like the people. They're gonna like use her in some way to like.
I hope that that's not the case. I don't think that that's gonna be his like arc. I think it makes more sense for him to like become a good guy now,
for sure,
and help her out in the situation. Because at this point in time, like, what is she gonna do? She's like by herself.
But I don't know if they like this was like an actual thing, but I think the storyteller dude dies at some point. Like there was I don't know if it like it just looked like him. I don't know if it's just like a typical white guy kind of thing.
Oh.
But like he was like on the floor, and they were like it zoomed in like I think in the last episode, and it looked exactly like him.
How did you know that?
I don't know.
Oh, you're saying like is in a fast forward you see
like in like one of those timelines or one of those jumps like. Right. There's all this chaos going on. I don't think I've ever seen
that. I think it's just like a white guy thing.
Maybe.
Like maybe they
like what? Because it was so subtle. Like it just like zoomed over his face.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he like even sacrificed his life for Maeve.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a really cute like final arc for him, because you know he's like, I didn't get to choose a storyline for you, but like go free and be happy.
It's like I chose this one.
Exactly. That'd be cute. So yeah, maybe that'll happen. And what else happens at the very end? Oh, the very end. So Dolores like rides off into the valley. And we go all the way back to Bernard and Charlotte in present time. So this is after the whole interrogation. He's finally told her what's up. And they say something like Bernard has been debugging himself this whole time, like during the conversation. Yeah. What does that mean?
Like he's trying to like fix his brain. Like he has all these memories from like his past, like as like Arnold.
Right.
And then he has like all these current memories. Like everything's just all looped up and messed up in his mind. He also has like 4 in his brain, right? So like he doesn't know what's going on.
So when they said they're debugging his head, that's when I started wondering, is Ford still in there, number one?
Yes.
And number two, is he hiding and that's why they like his brain is so jumbled when they're analyzing it?
I think that's the whole idea. Like if the whole thing where Ford entered his brain happened before, then he must still either be there or he like either transfers somewhere else, or I don't know. But I think it's like alluding to the fact that he's going to use like Ford to get out of that situation, or Ford's going to pop out at the Valley of Leon.
But he did give them the clue at the very end. He was like, I'll tell you where Abernathy is. He's in the Valley Beyond, sector 16 or whatever. And then she was like, nailed it. And then I guess they're all going to head there now. So the one thing that I kept going back to is that when we see him looking over the valley and seeing all the dead robots in episode 1, like, because we still haven't seen that part of it.
Yeah,
I'm just very confused about timelines.
I'm still confused about Bernard's timeline. I think that's the only one I don't know.
Is that timeline before or after they figure out that he's a robot?
Must
because
be.
I assume that like they find him on the beach and then they take him straight to that valley.
Yeah.
But maybe now, if I watch it again, it's them picking him from the beach and then like a second group of people take him to the valley now, like after this episode.
But then it has like
so
that like
confused.
tall president dude.
Yeah, he's not dead though.
Yeah, he's like the
bald
constant,
guy's
though.
not dead.
Yeah.
But Charlotte's not there.
Charlotte's not there. Yeah.
Like
In that initial
in that initial scene where he like is looking over the valley.
But I think that
Teddy's dead. So it is after this moment.
So maybe what's happening right now.
I'm just trying to piece it all together.
I think what's happening right now is the future. What's happening with Teddy and Dolores already happened.
Yes.
So
maybe for sure.
There's a good chance that he's
But that's what I mean. Like the timelines are getting so much closer that like it could be like a day apart or like a week. I don't even know. So I'm like, I want to know like when did he end up at the edge of that beach and saw all those bodies?
It happened before this, I think.
Yes. Yes.
I think it happened before this. They're going to go to the valley, and you think they're gonna go and meet up with Dolores.
Oh, but so, like you're saying that like it's already been happened. Yeah. Like it's already done.
So I think like at that point, Dolores already found whatever she had to find at the valley beyond, and then like Teddy dies, like water comes out. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
And then so now they're going to that location that he specified.
That's so confusing.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of confusing.
So yeah, what are your predictions for the rest of the season? So that's the end of the episode. What are your thoughts on what's gonna happen next?
I don't know. Like I guess
we're like 2 episodes to the end. So.
I guess it all like hinges on the valley beyond, right? And like there's one point where I think either Dolores said like there's souls there.
Yeah. So she's like, that's where you kept all the souls to Charlotte at some point in time. But I didn't know if she was just trying to be like cryptic or something. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. It might be going back to the whole idea of like they have just like a bunch of like human hosts there or something. And an army of them. Now that they've like pretty much like given us the fact that like that's what the Delos is trying to do, right?
Right. Yeah, I have no idea what to expect next episode. The next couple episodes are because usually episode 9, even though there's probably going to be a 10, episode 9 is always like the pivotal one.
Yeah.
Like, shit happens.
Like the shocker.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into our recap roundups.
Okay. Recap roundups. Best moment.
So what was your best moment?
My best moment was when it was at the end where Ford takes over Bernard's body. I thought it was cool.
Oh yeah.
It was a cool shot and
like the gun, like the actual like you're not gonna remember this or this is not your fault part. Yeah.
I thought it was cool because it's almost like the whole like Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing. Where
true. That's true. And
like it also shows like how much like what other shit Ford's gonna be doing later down the road. Like he's gonna be causing some stuff.
Some ish.
How about you?
My best moment was Dolores and Charlotte's kind of their relationship and how Dolores finally sees this woman. I just thought it was a really cool scene. It was really high drama for me because I was like, oh shit, is she actually gonna die? Is like this how Charlotte like meets her end? Because like I said, like everything's happening now. Like it's a season that's close to the season finale. These big hitters and these characters could die. So I'm just kind of excited to see what happens next. But this sequence, seeing these two powerful women kind of like face off in a sense, but also like Charlotte like losing so bad, was really, really cool to see.
No, for sure.
WTF moment.
My moment was when the guy goes up to the like introductory girl in the cradle, and I thought it was like kind of a waste scene because at that point Dolores already says like we're gonna destroy the cradle,
right?
And then it forwards to that place. You're like, oh yeah, okay, so I guess they're gonna do something here,
right? And
he's like, oh, like, ooh, what are you doing here? Like, I guess you're already shot up and everything.
Yeah.
At that point, I like just wanted her to have like dynamite strapped to her chest and just like explode. Because then I'm like, how else is she gonna destroy this if this guy didn't come out with like a grenade?
That's true. So you felt like it was kind of like a bit of like an extra moment.
I was like, whatever. I guess they're just killing off characters at this point.
That's true.
What about you?
My WTF moment was actually Ford jumping into Bernard's body.
Really, you didn't like it?
Well, you said for me, it was just more like, what the F is like he doing? Because you forget how ruthless like Ford actually is when he's like, we're just gonna do this. Like Ford, forget that like Bernard is a human being, like not a human being. He's a robot, so he's programmed to like do this certain thing, like, you know, just be whoever he needs to be. Ford is a human being, and he's totally okay with jumping into a body and shooting people up. So like you can tell that he obviously has a god complex where he thinks that he can do anything. I just like, you would never think that like Anthony Hopkins, I mean, yeah, you could with Anthony Hopkins, but I just like, I was kind of just like shocked that like Ford is still that ruthless. Like he done killed himself last season and he's still coming back and he's still killing people. So I just thought it was like, damn, dude, like that's pretty ruthless.
But I love it because like he's like this X factor.
That's fair.
MVP.
Who's your MVP?
I mean, it's kind of like two people ish. It has to be like a tie between like Ford and Dolores.
Oh shit, that's what I wrote down for me too. I was like Ford/Dolores. So why did you choose Ford?
Because I mean, I really like Anthony Hopkins.
Okay.
And I think like him coming back as a character like introduces a lot of like new elements to the story.
Yeah.
And kind of like brings a lot of things together. He explained a lot of plot. And, like, I don't know. I thought he was like a good person to come in at this point.
That's true.
And Dolores is just a badass.
So badass. So badass. And I like, yeah, I think for me it was Ford and Dolores too. I didn't know who to choose because I thought Ford coming in at this moment in time, I was like, yes, I'm so happy that he's back. I was hoping that he was going to come back, so I'm glad to have seen him again. And I'm very excited to see like what's going to happen with him because he's obviously not going anywhere anytime soon. And Dolores, yeah, for sure. She's a freaking badass and she's just like living her best life. And I think she's also starting to like turn a corner in a sense because I think there was some moments where I was like, girl, you're so evil. But now she's kind of like doing it in a way where she's really trying to protect the race. It's not the best way to do it, but she's making me feel more like, okay, I understand why you're being so harsh because like you just have to protect people. And I thought she was just like so cool this episode. Sure. She was so badass. I loved it.
Badass.
LVP.
Who's your LVP?
The MIB.
Oh yeah, true.
I thought
he's been MIB for us this whole season so far.
I don't know. I thought like him, like when that first scene, like Maeve's having this moment, like she's having all these flashbacks of like him coming in, killing her in a past life.
True.
And he could just,
you forget how like evil he was.
Yeah. He just like saunters in and he's like, oh, is this part of Ford's game? Yeah. And I don't know. It just kind of pissed me off. And like he still doesn't know what's going on. There's all this other stuff happening. Maeve can control robots. Yeah. And he's like, why are you shooting me? Like, yeah. He just seemed like a waste guy.
He's like in a bit. His storyline currently is like a bit backward too. It's a little far removed.
What about you?
My LVP is the Hemsworth brother.
Okay, that's fair.
I just didn't think, for one, I didn't think that he was going to be useful at all. And he still remains to be pretty useless. In a sense, I almost thought that he was going to be someone who was going to help them out and like be like a ally to the robots. But it seems that he's not, but he's also not a really good human being.
Yeah, he's not really like a good anything.
So like he's not real, like I don't know what his game is. I personally thought that we still don't know how he got released by Ghost Nation, right? The last time we saw him a couple episodes back with like the daughter, he was still captured by Ghost Nation. So my assumption is that either they let him go and told him something, or they or he got away.
No, I think like they actually showed it. It was like a hoax, pretty much. Like they like took him out and they were gonna like execute him. Yeah. And then they just disappeared. They like that was an intentional thing.
And then they just left him there. Yeah. Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Oh. Wow, totally missed that. But anyway, going back to Hemsworth brother, I just think he's useless right now. I just don't know what he's doing. I don't like the fact that he's helping Troll, but also at the same time, like, yeah, what is your purpose?
I think he's just like another character to like go on the human and like introduce that side of the story, because you already have like host, which is Dolores. You have like that in between, which is Bernard. We don't really have like a human person to follow around, and he's kind of that guy.
True.
The best line.
What was your best line?
There were like so many good ones, but I guess my favorite one was, it's kind of long. It's like, the great library burned. First 10,000 years of stories were reduced to ash. But those stories never really perished. They just became a new story. A story of the fire itself.
Damn! That was from Ford.
Yeah, that was from Ford.
Telling Bernard, and yeah, it's basically saying like history is written, but then it's rewritten and it's created. It creates a new story. Essentially,
like stories never like they always get transformed and like new things happen. It's like a metaphor for like what's happening now, right? Like this movement, the fire movement, is like Ford lighting the match and destroying Westworld, destroying maybe even humanity. Like who knows what exactly he's talking about.
Dun, dun, dun. My best line is also from Ford because he thank God for Anthony Hopkins and them giving him these like amazing lines, but it just delivers so much better with like a British accent. But he says, and I said it earlier, he says every piece of information in the world has been copied except the human mind, the last analog device in a digital world. Ooh. And I just thought it was really interesting because it's very true. Like everything else has been able to be duplicated and replicated. The only thing that you can't really change and create free will properly for a computer. So until they get to that point, we're safe as a human race.
Yeah.
But
we're getting
there. And at Westworld, that's exactly what it is. That's the whole gag underneath this amusement park.
Yeah.
So it was a really important line to hear, I think, from this whole entire show and just like the concept of the series in general. So yeah, loved it.
Can I give an honorable mention?
Yeah, do it.
So there was one other one that I was like really close to choosing, and it was by Dolores. So like Ford and Dolores, obviously MVPs.
Yeah.
It's like, you are lost in the dark. When you've been in the dark, oh, this is something that Maeve says.
Yeah.
And she says, when you've been in the dark long enough, you begin to see, I saw a lot what lies ahead and who I need to become in order to survive. So like it just shows like it's a summary of like Dolores as a character, right? Like she's been through all this crap, and she alludes to the fact that she's like, you know, I've been through all these past lives and they remember all of it, and now she just like transformed to become who she is.
It's true. Yeah, I guess you forget that Dolores lived a lot longer than Maeve had, right?
Exactly.
And she went through a lot more. So to know that she has more to do is really exciting. And yeah, it was a really powerful line because I was like, before she like was gonna blow her head off.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting stuff. We'll see how the episode goes. Thanks so much for joining me, JP. I really appreciate you standing in for NB.
Thanks for having me.
NB should be back for next episode, so just make sure you guys stay tuned. Thanks for listening. Make sure you guys comment and subscribe. Let us know what you think about this season so far. It's almost at the end, so we just want to know like what your guys' opinions are. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.